Good morning to you all. Thank you all for being here and taking the time to come and listen to me babble for the next couple of minutes. So, as Melissa, thank you also, Melissa, for the introduction. As Melissa mentioned, my name is Babajide Okusanya, and it is pronounced Babajide. I get this a lot, so it's just so you get used to it. So I'm originally from Nigeria, and a few years ago, I bumped into a couple of now friends, co-founders, and roommates in Brussels, where we connected, and a few years later we met in New York, and then we came up with this idea. So what I'm about to introduce to you is Makers Valley. And also, FYI, in case you missed it, I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of the company. So, now, Makers Valley, what do we do? It's a very interesting question. So, this picture is to represent a tiny little village in Italy. And the bicycle is also to represent that. It's just to promote simplicity. And that's actually where this idea was born. It was born in a tiny village in Italy, Napoli to be specific. And if you want to get more specific, Cardito. So, now, the thing about Italy, when you hear Italy, made in Italy or whatnot, you think of fashion, high quality, you know, great things that you can easily, that you would want to get. So, with Makers Valley, what we realize is that there have been lots of manufacturers out there in the fashion world in Italy who, they've been in the game for a while. They've been manufacturing clothes for huge brands, but you know, they've not been necessarily growing. Over the past 20, 30 years, factories have had to close down in this tiny little town and also along the region as well. And this was because of the fact that lots of huge brands were the ones that primarily had access to it. So, and they also couldn't bargain, more or less, because there were not too many demands coming in. So, I'll just throw you a scenario out there. Let's assume I want to have this particular shirt made in Italy. I invite you all here as manufacturers to a meeting and say, I want to have this made, bid for it. So, because of the fact that the demand was not so high, because there was only one of me and there were so many of you, what will happen more often than not is that you would bid, but then you also want the business, so you would outbid him, but then to get to a point that's lower than the cost of production, that is not sustainable for the industry to keep thriving. So people who have been in the industry for multiple generations, you know, they pass down the skills and knowledge from family to family, start to close down. So this is one thing that was observed by one of my co-founders who's Italian. I'll introduce them all later. But then what also happens on the flip side as well is that for people who actually want to make these clothes, who are not these huge brands, who don't know about all you wonderful manufacturers out there, that's you guys in Italy, is the fact that they don't necessarily know how to connect with them. So they usually go through a broker, it becomes super expensive, they're usually high minimum orders, you need to make 10,000 pieces before we can bring your designs to life. So when my other co-founder, who's in the room over here, Tiffany Shamal, while she was in Italy, she noticed this particular problem that, while she was in New York, she noticed this particular problem that boutique owners and designers were having. They're like, I want to make my own clothes, and they're made in Italy, high quality, but it's so difficult because I don't know anything about it. So then that's when we discovered this particular situation, which I've already indicated. That there's the designers, there's the artisans, and there's so many things in between that makes it so hard for them to work together. And that is exactly where we come in. Applause, anybody? No? So, well, thank you very much. So that's exactly where we come in. We sit in the middle to try to connect the manufacturers in these tiny little towns across Italy, and eventually want to expand across the world to anybody in the world who wants to create designs with them, who wants to bring their designs to life. So we sit in the middle to try to make it work. Make life simpler for everybody, to have a win-win-win situation. We don't have a broker fee, and we also don't charge the factories to come onto our service. So it's a win-win for everybody. So now, all this happens through our online platform. Our designers or boutique owners, or you, can hop onto our service, onto our platform, create an account in there, fill in your details of what you want to make, and then one of our 185 factories would then be able to hop in there, see your project, and be like, I can do this for this amount. So in the same situation which I just created earlier, where I mentioned that, you're all here, and I'm just one brand who wants to create a club, who wants to create this shirt. Now there's 2,000 of me coming into the room in front of all of you, to request for bids. So this creates diversification of profits for the manufacturers and gives a very great opportunity for the designers or the boutique owners to be able to get competitive prices at a reasonable amount. So all of this is our online platform where they can see a timeline of the manufacturing process in itself. So one of the great things that we also added in there is that as your clothes are being manufactured by the designers, the manufacturers can upload pictures. So you can see it in real time, what's happening, how it's being made, the story of the manufacturer of your private label. So that is exactly what we got over there. Something about the market in itself is that what we're trying to do is that we're not trying to target, we're not in the retail business, we're in the manufacturing business. So people who want to create their own private labels once again. So this is the industry. It's an $11 billion industry, and for wholesale itself, it's $9 billion, right? But then what we're trying to do, we just want to access this small chunk of the market, right, to make it possible for everybody across the world to create their own clothing line. So, how we make our money? Because we need to make money to survive. So we're a SaaS. So if you want to create an account on our service, there's a subscription model. Based on which plan you want, if you want to create one particular pattern, or one particular project, or one particular thing, you go with the $49 subscription plan. We also have another subscription plan for 3 products, and we have another one for unlimited. We've actually seen quite interesting statistics on what people are choosing to see that there's lots of demand for what they want to make. And also, another thing that we also throw in there is that there's a 22% add-on that we add in for every production you make. So meaning that once you're actually making your clothes, 22% of that comes to us. Now it's not like we're charging anything crazy. This is exactly the amount you'll get if you were in Italy. If you step foot in Italy, you're buying coffee in front of the manufacturer, and it's like, I want to manufacture with you, go across the street, and you try to manufacture with them, you'll get that exact same price. But the fact that you're not in Italy and you're abroad means that you get a tax cut. You don't get that 22% VAT. So we're like, yeah, we could actually give you the real price itself, rather than you flying all the way down there and also go in there to meet. So that's exactly how we make our money. Now, in terms of our competitors, we have Alibaba, Amazon, eBay, Zazzle, and Maker Zero, right? All these guys have their own thing going. But where we're so different is the fact that you can create high-quality products, and you can customize it as much as you want. It's to the point whereby it's more detailed to what you want, rather than just what is out there in the market. So that's exactly where we come in. Now, our customer acquisition process is very interesting, because right now we've been getting lots of registrations coming in, and this comes in through online marketing, through partnerships with boutiques, with pattern makers, and so on and so forth, and they just sign up to our platform. Fun fact: 2 weeks ago we made our beta, which is our beta platform, open, meaning that people could sign up, register in there, and get direct access. Before that, we would have to send them credentials because our sales process was longer. We would call them and be like, hey, do you really want this service? Are you really sure? But now, after we've defined the process a little bit better, we realized that this is a good time to open it up. And this is the current situation we're having, where there's an influx of people registering and eventually becoming customers. So this is where we are today. Just quick numbers so that I can keep you all updated. I just had to actually refresh this today because the statistics has changed, especially over the past 2 weeks. So we have 54 customers, 149 projects created on our platform. We have 82 fashion entrepreneurs, literally from all around the world, registered in here, in at least 15 different countries, in places that we completely had no idea where there would be people interested in the service. We have 15 users registering every week, including manufacturers, including designers as well. And we have an average lifetime value of $16,000 for each customer. So that's where we are today. We're expected to see these numbers rise, given the fact that we literally don't do much in terms of marketing, but the demand is there. So people find us and they come in, and over the next month or so, we're expecting to see these numbers rise interestingly. So that is also just a quick overview of everything itself in terms of the product types, the manufacturers, and also the custom products that we have made so far. So this is my team over here. So Alessio Iadicico, he is the person in the Italian, he's the Italian in the picture who grew up in that tiny little town and saw these manufacturers evolving. We also have my co-founder and COO over here, Tiffany Chamal, who is in the room. And we have myself, and also we have a country manager in Italy who runs our team over there. And we also have a sales director in Italy who works with us with factories. And this is, we had an event last month. Was it last month? Yes. It was last month in the Chamber of Commerce. And we had our team president there as well. And this was also us last year in Puerto Rico, where we hired a team of developers, marketers, and also salespeople who work with us. So right now we're a total of 10, and we're growing periodically. So yeah, that is pretty much it with Makers Valley. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation, it was excellent. So, this question might need a little bit of context, so I apologize. But we've used Alibaba before as a way to connect with overseas manufacturers, and almost universally, every manufacturer on that system tries to circumnavigate the system to avoid those fees. What's your plan to avoid a similar issue? I guess this time it would be flipped, where the incentive would be on the customer to go outside the system.
Yes, exactly. So that's a very good question. Thank you very much for that. So what we do is that, as of now, there's no direct communication between the manufacturer and the designer. In between the both of them, we have two account managers who actually get the work and the communication done. So even though all the information about the projects is in there, the factories can see the project, the manufacturer can see the project, the designers and boutique owners can see the project as well. But behind the scenes, in order to get that project realized, we have account managers for the designer and also for the manufacturer in Italy and in the US, who make sure that everybody gets what they need to get done. So yeah, that's how we do right now.
So real quick, this may be a little negative devil's advocate side of this, but say there's a small manufacturer or even a large one that comes on and looks at your service, and then all they're there for is to look at really nice designs from other people and then make them on the side without even using your service or using the, you see what I'm saying? Like they would just steal the design and and start producing on their own, and you guys would, what would you do in that instance, or is there a path, or do you see that going forward, I guess? Because I could see that as being a huge problem that would just kill this.
Oh yes, definitely, and that makes solid sense. So thank you so much for your question. So now what we have in place is that we have a terms and agreement, terms and conditions that everybody signs, both the manufacturers and the designers sign. So in this situation, one of the clauses that we have in there is the fact that they cannot do such a thing. In such a situation, if they do have a breach that, we can definitely take them to court and have it resolved. The same thing also applies for the designers as well, whereby we make sure that their designs are protected. So everybody is kind of guarded legally. That's how we're tackling it. Thank you very much.
Any question?
So is it all just clothing right now? Are you planning on expanding to other things? I mean, do you have shoes, shoes, leather goods, that kind of stuff, jewelry? Do you see this as more of a platform, or do you want to stay specifically with apparel right now?
Okay, well, thank you very much for the question. So right now we do clothes, we do shoes, we do bags as well. We do not do jewelry, but we'll be getting into other areas as well. Eventually, over the year, the plan for us is to democratize manufacturing. That is the core premise of our company. And by so doing, we want to get into multiple industries in different countries and try to apply a similar model that will be able to connect people together in this fashion.
Do you have, notice you said you hired, was it Not in Italy, it was somewhere else. I'm trying to
Puerto Rico?
Yes.
Yes.
So are you plans to expand connections in other countries, and what's your?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So we're growing we're growing exponentially, and as time passes, we definitely need to hire a lot of people. So we've also hired somebody here who works with us with sales. Eventually, as we grow, we'll probably hire more as we go here in Italy, here in St. Louis, more people in Italy as we keep growing as well. But we're just going to do a lot of evaluations based on the current stage of the company.
What is your average customer's outcome, and can you survive from this? And thus implying, do you need to hit home runs with your customers, or have them hit home runs for your company to survive?
I didn't quite get that question. Is it more in terms, just so I understand, is it more in terms of the revenue that we generate from each customer, or could you explain a little bit further? Sorry.
I guess the customer's desired outcome. Their average outcome, is that viable for you to maintain your business model? I mean, they only sell. I'm unfamiliar with the fashion industry. Is it average to just sell 20 garments, and are you viable from that, or does somebody, in order to stay in the fashion industry, have to become a mass distributor?
Okay, that's a very good question. So what happens here is this, that on an average, we have our customers stay with us for about 18 months or so, and they go through an entire manufacturing cycle with us. So we have a model in such a way that it's kind of like, it's a pay-as-you-go service. So if you don't want something in particular, you're given the details and everything ahead. So everybody, before they move forward with any stage of the production, they're made aware and then they need to pay for it before they move forward. If it gets to a point whereby they do not want the service anymore, it's very easy for them to leave. So we've had a few people who have tried it because they're completely new to fashion. They just had this idea in their minds. They're like, okay, I'm going to try this. And for some of them, they're like, maybe it's not for me. For some of them, it definitely works. And if your question with us being able to survive from this, yes, definitely, because of the fact that, because of the rate at which we're growing, the number of people who actually do have that situation whereby they're like, I don't want to go into production is actually a lot lower. So that's how we're able to be sustainable over the next couple of years. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
All right, I have like two questions.
Sure, bring it.
First, my question is, do you think most people use it for samples? And then maybe, because you told me the timeline, like about 18 months, do you think people use to get really good samples and possibly go somewhere else to get it cheaper? And how you attacking that?
That is a very good question because that has actually happened. So, by the way, just to clarify, when I meant 18 months, I meant that they stay on our service and they reorder. If an entire production process going from nothing to your actual production order sent to you can take probably 4 to 5 months. But back to your question with regards to people getting samples and going places. That has happened multiple times. And you know, we just sit back and we actually, for us it's interesting because we give them the prices, and this is exactly what it is. Where it gets interesting is the fact that, or where it gets interesting the fact that we're working with sort of people who have been doing this for generations, right? So the quality is there, the quality is there. Also, one of our value adds is the fact that we don't have minimum orders. So if you want to go to, most people who have tried to manufacture in other regions of the world, there's usually a high minimum order or so. Also on top of that, the quality is usually not on par. So we've had those cases where people go to search for prices, and in a few weeks or a month or so later, they come back to us. So more often than not, they come back to us.
Thank you. You talked a bit about changing to a self-service sign-up model,
Yes.
and from a more high-touch sales and business development strategy. Can you just talk a little bit about what that has meant you needed to do?
So the primary reason why we actually had that process in place was because of the fact that, so also to be clear, we've been running for 2 years. We started in April 2016, and we've gone through multiple iterations of our company. It originally started, before we had the platform, we were working through spreadsheets and emails, and eventually we launched the platform last year, and even with that, we still wanted to make sure that it was in a place where we would be able to automate things a lot better. And also, we're understanding more of the customer's needs by having direct conversations with them. So that was sort of the primary reason why we were having that high touch method. By so doing, after like a year of studying and analyzing each of these conversations, what people need, what kind of information they're putting on our platform, we fine-tuned our platform in such a way that it's more intuitive and it also clear for people who want to use it up. So eventually when we opened up 2 weeks ago, it was part of the plan because we knew that that's what we would get into, and now we're just sitting and waiting for people to come in, which they are, and these are a little more automated than they were before.
So the high touch process was about trying to define the specific use cases that were repeatable for your business.
Exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other question? So, what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me out of my code? The code, because that's actually a very good question, because I haven't slept much in the past couple of days. But yeah, so apart from developing the platform and trying to make it more scalable and whatnot, we're at a point whereby we're scaling, right? We've been working on a we've been working in a smaller scale, but then growing from 52 to 1,000, which is our goal for the end of the year, is going to be interesting for us. We need to be able to adjust very quickly to the demand and also to predict the possible outcomes of what it will be in the next couple of months. So one of the things that we are currently interested in working on is trying to get mentorship or more information about supply chain, especially when we get to a scale whereby we have 100,000 orders being shipped on a weekly basis or monthly basis and so on and so forth. So that's I would say is one of the things that we're like, okay, we need to try to figure out how to set this up to make that work as seamlessly as possible. So that's everything.
Well, and that's a great segue to our final question that we always want to make sure we ask, though I forget often, and you guys do not have my back. Nobody goes, hey Melissa, you forgot to ask them what can the community do for you. So please, we're a team here, people. So in addition to supply chain wisdom,
Yes.
what else could the community do for you?
Well, it's just right now we've gotten to a point whereby we're just sitting and waiting for people to come in, which has been great. So pretty much, anybody just spread the word. Apart from supply chain knowledge, we also any information or any support or mentorship that'll help us in this particular industry, because we have years of experience working with multiple manufacturers, also working with designers to understand how the model works. But then we're also evolving and learning as well. So best case practices, especially for scaling and going global. Right now we're also at a point whereby we're getting a high volume of customers that's outside the US, because our primary target was the US. So also international trade and taxes and laws and things of that nature would be excellent for us to know. So that would be great for us.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing this
Thank you all
morning.
very much.